Hello, welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. During the college football season, this podcast highlights draftable players that match up. So we're covering players 1 to 400 on the big board, and we're hoping to show which players are improving draft stock as the season progresses. None of the players that we discuss have officially declared for the NFL draft. So this episode is going to focus on the NC State versus Clemson matchup and the draftable players that are going to be playing. So want to definitely focus on two players right at the top of the board. So Barrett Carter and Blake Miller from Clemson are top 50 players. So we definitely want to get used to their names, how they match up, what their play style is. So let's start at the very top with Barrett Carter. I have a first round grade on Barrett Carter right now. This is going to be a really good linebacker class. So with Barrett Carter having a first round grade, I'm telling you, he's linebacker 5 on the board. Okay? But he has a first round grade. This is a loaded linebacker class. You just have to decide what kind of linebacker do you want. So very specifically, though, let's look at Barrett Carter as a linebacker, and then players that he would be matched up against would include Anthony Belton at offensive tackle. So how well does Carter engage the blocks of Belton? Grayson McCall at quarterback. I love linebacker quarterback matchups. Okay, so I don't have a draftable grade on Grayson McCall right now, but I believe McCall is going to find a home at least in an NFL training camp. His grade right now is just outside the draftable range, and there's plenty of teams that will add a quarterback to the training camp roster. So I definitely think McCall is at least going to get a look in the preseason. So let's take a look at Barrett Carter against Grayson McCall. Okay, let's take a look at that matchup right there. The next player, let's talk about Blake Miller. So Blake Miller, offensive tackle from Clemson. He could play right tackle. He could play left tackle. 6'5", 310, Blake Miller. Like, that's prototypical NFL tackle size. So let's take a look at Blake Miller. And specifically, Blake Miller will be matching up against David Van, defensive lineman from NC State. Okay. And I have a draftable grade on Van, 6'2", 280. So we'd be looking at Van as a likely 3-tech, 5-tech type of defensive lineman from NC State. Okay. Couple of other players to focus on. So quarterback from Clemson, Cade Klubnik. Okay. And as a quarterback from Clemson, we'll be able to see him go against Adam White, a corner from NC State. So Aiden White, I have just outside the draftable range, but Aiden White, cornerback from NC State, 6 feet tall, 189 pounds. Okay. So White could definitely improve his draft stock by showing how he plays against an NFL caliber quarterback in Klubnik. So that's definitely the type of matchup that we look for and we try to highlight on the podcast. Let's talk about some of the other players. Antonio Williams, wide receiver from Clemson, 5'11", 195. Probably a slot receiver at the next level. And then we should also talk about right underneath him is tight end Jake Brenningstool from Clemson. So NC State, we've talked about Aiden White. So they'll be matched up against Aiden White from NC State. So really good matchup there between a wide receiver, tight end, and a likely corner that's at least going to get a shot at training camp. Okay. If we look a little bit further down, we have another tackle from Clemson, Tristan Lay. Tristan Lay would also be matched up against David Van. So Clemson is putting into the draft 2 tackles, Blake Miller, Tristan Lay, and I would say they're both going to get drafted. The question would be, how high does Tristan Lay go? And then at the NFL level, Lay may be more of a guard than he is a tackle. But the fact that he could play left guard or right guard or tackle, that flexibility screams offensive lineman 9. I can think of several teams where the last offensive lineman or even all of the reserve offensive linemen are required to play more than one position. Lay fits that. So there's going to be a spot for Lay at the NFL level. Let's go ahead and take a look at him against David Van. A couple of other draftable players from Clemson that are worth a shout out. Phil Maffa, the running back, 6'1", 230. Likely going to be drafted. There's usually about 25 running backs every year that get drafted. Somewhere between 18 and 25 get drafted. I would put Maffa in that group of 18 to 25. Jaden Lucas, cornerback from Clemson. So we'll see him. And there is a wide receiver on NC State. He's further down the list, Dakari Collins. So let's take a look at the Jaden Lucas versus Dakari Collins matchup. Okay, my name is Jim. You can follow me on X at NFL Draft Fanatic. There's no I in Fanatic on my Twitter. This podcast is sponsored by NFLDraftFanatics.com. NFLDraftFanatics.com is the home of the only interactive mock draft simulator. And what that means is the fans control the big board, the fans control the player rankings. When you pick a player, they move up the board. The players you don't pick move down the board. So fans have control over what the big boards look like based on who they select in a mock draft. So please like, follow, and subscribe to this channel. Follow us on Twitter at NFLDraftFanatics.com. You can follow us on YouTube. NFLDraftFanatics.com is the name of the YouTube channel. And remember, every day is draft day if you have the right attitude. My name is Jim with NFLDraftFanatics.com. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a great weekend.